So Tanner, first question, how much have you played with some of the other guys on TBT? I know you had one mention that, you had been with some of them, playing with them in the summer. How much experience time have you had playing with them, going up against them over the years?
Yeah, I played with Joan in France for a full season. So I spent a lot of time with him as our point guard and got to know him pretty well. We were the only two Americans on the team. So that was kind of, we had that connection. So we got pretty close there. I also I played with a couple other guys who won't be on the team, Tariq and Javon both. I played with them in Memphis. But then just in the summers, I've spent a ton of time with Kevin and with John and those guys. I mean, I do everything I can to go up against Kevin as often as I can because he's so talented that it's good practice for me, and I get the opportunity to test myself a little bit and get better. So as often as I can, I'm in the gym with them. They're kind of my connection up here. They're how I get in and how I get my work in the summer. So I do as much as I can to be around them.
And following up with that, your progression as a rebounder. I mean, starting out as a walk-on, obviously, I think you were listed as like 6'6" or 6'7" as a freshman, obviously grew some, filled out some. What have been the keys for you to progress into the rebounder you've become today?
So I started lifting weights really heavily in college. That was kind of how I became a good player. It was something that it kind of gave me confidence. I was able to go into every game feeling like I was stronger than the guys I was going against. And so I wasn't really the most athletic, but I'm tall. I'm got long arms. And then I became really good at getting in position with my size. And that kind of translated over in my first few years as a professional. I continued playing the five. So I was a five in college. And then I continued as a 5'4" kind of in my first couple of years. And so I did really well rebounding my first couple seasons. And then I kind of realized that if I wanted to play at the higher levels, I had to move to the four. I wasn't tall enough. So at 6'7", 6'8", I'm really 6'7.5", probably. It's tough to be a five man at that size. So I had to, develop a shot. And when you're outside, you're not around the rebounds quite as much. So my numbers went down a bit, but I still take a lot of pride in crashing the boards and being physical on that side of the ball.
People are using the hands up thing, so I'm going to go with Ryan next because they're being very polite with the hand emojis, and I'm not used to this level of organization. Oh, Greg's done it too now. Okay.
We do it for you, Dave. So Tanner, I mean, you're the West Virginia kid that didn't play for WVU. So if you can just kind of describe to us what it means for you to be a West Virginia native who gets to play with a lot of these WVU alums who I'm sure, as a kid, you either kind of grew up watching them or like you said, you've played alongside of a couple of them. So what is this experience? What does this opportunity mean to you?
Yeah, it's gotten to the point now where it's kind of commonplace that I see these guys around, but growing up, I mean, I watched Kevin play. I watched Deshaun play. I watched that generation, and we were fans. We idolized these guys. It was like the next level. They were the professionals. I mean, you guys know in West Virginia, we don't have professional teams really anywhere close. So those are our professionals. We see these guys as really special individual athletes in every sport, especially basketball for me specifically. So whenever I first got the opportunities, it's kind of hard for me to see myself as their equal. But over the years, it's been my goal to just keep that confidence and consider myself as at that same level. And so just to play on the same team as them, knowing how I grew up and everybody around me, like I said, idolize these guys. It's really special for me. And it means a lot that they invited me on and that I'm able to hopefully contribute.
So I think Sam's next, waiting patiently with his hand up.
Thanks, Dave. Tanner, like pretty much everybody on the team, you have an extensive career overseas. That's a big change from West Virginia Wesleyan and Buchanan Upshur. How has that changed your game, and what's that experience like?
Yeah. Whenever I'm playing around with guys that I've known for a long time, I play a very different style. I just have fun playing basketball. So a lot of guys that know me probably don't see the way that I have to play to be a professional. They don't get to see that side of my game. So when I have to like get into that mode when I go back overseas of like a real commitment to my strengths and playing my style of basketball. So coming up from it, it started in college. I knew my strengths and I played to them. And so as I have developed over the last few years, becoming more of a shooter, becoming more of an all around player as opposed to just a big man. It's been really important for me to keep that confidence. And that's why I get in the gym with those guys, because, they're super confident in what they do and they deserve to be, but being able to hold myself up to that standard is the way that I've been able to have some success.
We got Mr. Greg Carey there.
Yeah. Tanner, I was just curious, can you kind of take us through your history in the TBT? If I'm not mistaken, you were around for some of the like preseason events last year, but you were on another team. Is that right?
Yeah, I've actually I've never played in any official TBT events, but I did play in the exhibition game in Wheeling last year. So we had a team we were meant to be in with a team from the Mountain East Conference. So I'm sure you guys know, being around this area, the Mountain East has had some really high level players come out the last 5-6 seasons. And so we had a group of guys who were all professionals who could have come together and probably put a good team in. But a couple fizzled out. And so that just like Jamel ended up playing with you guys, with us now. And so we didn't quite have the team we wanted going into that game last year, but it was really good to the guys that I did know that were on the team, on our team, and when we played against WVU's guys. It was nice to get back and have an experience playing with them again. And we held our own. Of course, we ended up losing, but throughout three quarters or so, it was a competitive game. I think we shocked them a little bit, so that was good.
Kevin. Kevin, you good?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear my name. So, Tanner, do you have an idea of what your role is going to be this year? I mean, obviously, rebounding seems to be a big key. Giving Kevin some help on the boards, that was a little bit of a hole maybe last year. Is that one of the things that you're hoping to fill, that the team hopes you can fill?
Yeah. So I've spoken to James a little bit, not a ton. So I don't know specifically what they're wanting, but I would say, they know who I am and what I do. I'm more of like a facilitating big. I like to play. I like when the ball is played through me. I can create for others really well. I would say that I play really well in dribble handoffs, pick and pop style stuff. But I believe the intention is, whenever I'm on the court, to kind of allow me to play that high post with facilitating role, a little bit like maybe a little bit like Marc Gasol played with Memphis and how they played through him, and guys like that, just because I'm more of a skilled big, as opposed to like, they're not going to throw me the ball in the post and say, go score. That's not the intention as far as I know. So, which is great with me.
Sam.
Tanner, is it tough to be an overseas basketball player? Jamel kind of spoke about, coming back home, and 2 years ago, it was a tough decision to play in TBT because the schedule didn't match up. He wanted to spend time with his family. So is it tough kind of managing that aspect?
Definitely. The schedule kind of just worked out this year, which was nice. My wife and I travel everywhere together. So the family that we don't see is our parents and my sister and her siblings. But, throughout the summer, we're able to spend a lot of time with them, and FaceTime makes it super easy to connect while we're over there. So Because guys like Jamel, he goes over by himself and he leaves his family back. It's a much more difficult transition, I'm sure, and he wants to spend as much time as possible, understandably so. But for me, I'm able to kind of structure my summers however I want. Generally I just spend the weeks working out a few times a week, and then kind of take the weekends to do whatever the things, the fun things in the summer that you look to do. So I put a lot of time throughout the week, which gives me the weekends to spend for myself, but not too hard of an adjustment for me.
Greg.
Tanner, are you in Romania still? Is that where you most recently played overseas? And what was that experience like? What's it been like there for you?
Yeah, I just finished in Romania. I don't believe I'll go back. I might. It's not out of the question. It's not a bad place. I liked Romania. The league is solid. I think there's going to be 18 teams this year, so plenty of competition. But it was different. It was more Eastern Europe, so I've only really been in the Western European cultures, and obviously Australia as well. So it was those. The people kind of know what to expect in those Western European countries. They have their own culture, but everything's pretty modern. But when you think of Eastern Europe, it can get a little different because all those countries have so much history and so much that they're so specific. Romanian is not spoken anywhere but Romania, right? So they keep within their own to themselves as a country, and there's not a ton of information out there about like what it's going to be like. But it was great. The club was super welcoming. They took care of us. It's maybe not important to everybody, but money was on time, never missed any money, which as an overseas player, sometimes you can get, that can be a thing that causes people issues, but I've been blessed that that's never been a problem for me. And our management was great. Teammates were good. Romanian guys were really nice to be around. There was no issues on the court or off. So I liked it there. No problems.
Ryan?
Yeah, Tanner, I was just wondering, kind of just your thoughts on the Elam ending style of play and how you kind of maybe personally then as a team or a unit kind of get in the mindset of, once that number it's reached or kind of set, you got to get to that number, kind of before the other team does. But just what's your thoughts on that?
So I've never experienced it of course, when you play pickup, you kind of play that where it's like you're trying to get to a number. There's really not a time limit, but I watched the games last year, and what I notice is the game kind of shifts once that time or once the 4 minutes or whatever it is shuts off and you're playing the Elam ending. Things kind of get a little out of control. The game is not quite as structured. It's more just like guys think, oh, we got to score. And I would say that we should be very intentional about just continuing to do the things that, like if we have a lead, continuing to do the things that got us the lead. Don't change the style just because of what's happening. A lot of teams end up going one-on-one a lot. Guys try to be the hero. Just from what I saw, I've never experienced it, like I said, but to me, that would be a mistake. If we are going to have success as a team, it's going to be as a team. You see the roster, you see the guys who have been announced, and so none of us are going to be the star player. I think we're going to work really well together, and that's intentional. I don't think that when they structured the team, that was the point. And if all of us can commit to winning, especially at that end of the game scenario, I think we'll be really tough to beat because we have so many guys who can fill the roles to win games. So,
Sam, I think you're next.
You're muted, Sam.
Thanks, Tanner. Sorry about that.
No worries.
You mentioned something that kind of piqued my curiosity and something I've always wondered about. We hear about NBA All-Stars getting courted with like big steak dinners whenever they're a free agent or whatnot. But you just mentioned, you don't know if you're going to go back to Romania or not. Obviously, the season just ended. So what's that off season like when you're, just in between teams? Are you getting calls or are you just kind of sitting around waiting for a call? What's that like?
So at my level, I'm kind of in that upper middle tier. I even call it middle tier level right now. So I was up. I played in Porto a couple years ago and actually broke my leg. I'm not sure if that's been talked about, but so I broke my leg and was out for like 13 months and then came back for not this last season, but the season before for like half a season. And I wasn't 100%. So I wasn't able to really show I wasn't able to get back to my true self. So that's why nothing wrong with Romania, right? But I was at a level that was a bit higher and kind of had to take a step down. Not a huge step, still high level basketball, but at that peak of my career, I had a lot more choice, like option in where I was going. There were calls that I got to make decisions. Whereas this last year, it wasn't quite the same. It was more like narrowing down a few choices for the best one. But this year, I hope, especially if I can have a good showing here in the TBT, that I'll have a lot more options. And what it is we all have agents. Almost all of us have agents. The agent has connections with teams overseas. Those teams will see if they like your style at first. Like I would say they first look at numbers. And then if your numbers are good enough for them, they'll check out your film. And then if that works out, they'll give you a call and you'll talk to them. So that usually happens late July. Some guys sign way earlier, but for me, that's typically the time frame.
Kevin.
Okay, you got my interest with the fact that your wife travels with you. How long have you been married? And how did you either break that to her or ask her, hey, do you want to go with me? How did all that play out?
Yeah. So that was like kind of a deal breaker for us about playing, because my first contract was more just like an adventure. You know, I wasn't supposed to be a professional basketball player. I was good in college my last year, but that was never a part of the plan. So with a couple months left, I got somebody had reached out to me from Australia, and I told Abby, I was like, hey, this is possible if you want to go, like we could do this. And basically we came to the agreement that we weren't going to do this kind of thing unless we were married, because I'll say one thing about being overseas in different countries and playing for these teams. If you have a girlfriend, and it's different than if you have a wife. When they see that you're married, they treat them with much more respect. They're not disrespectful, but they treat them as your partner and like you are one package deal. So they pay for flights, they pay for housing, they take care of her just like they would me. Whereas I see guys with girlfriends who don't have that same experience. So we ended up getting married. We got engaged about a month before graduation, got married the day of my graduation, and then left the next week when she graduated from WVU. So it was a really fast-paced ordeal. We got it done, though, in my backyard, and it was, I guess that's history.
Anything for those free flights, right, Tanner?
That's right. I'm not paying for her.
Ryan?
Sorry, I got myself unmuted there. So I guess maybe to segue a little bit, I'm sure your wife and you as well have crossed some things off your all's bucket list by traveling internationally. As a West Virginia kid who grew up playing basketball in West Virginia, it is or was playing in the Charleston Civic Center, the Charleston Coliseum. Is that kind of a bucket list type item for you? Have you played in the Charleston Coliseum before? And if not, I mean, is that kind of a bucket list thing for you, given your history with WVU high school basketball?
So I did. I played in the MEC tournament down there one time, and so I've played there. I've been around there, and so of course I'm excited about playing there, especially in front of the WVU fans. That's the big bucket list thing. And I say bucket list. It was never on my list because I never thought it was a possibility. But I've watched games. I've watched the fans and how they interact with the players, and the commitment that they have to WVU sports is obviously amazing. And so I'm really excited to hopefully just feel a little bit of that love and be able to kind of reciprocate that back to them and let them feel that I'm putting out the effort for something they care so deeply about.
Sam, you have your hand up, I think.
Yeah. So Tanner, do you bring the trombone to Europe, or do you leave that in the States?
That's actually in my closet at my parents' house. I don't play very much anymore. And my college professor would be sad to hear that. I mostly just play guitar now. It's super easy. An electric guitar is like $100 typically. So I can just grab one anywhere I go and then give it or sell it to a teammate whenever I leave. And it's not super loud because I don't plug it in. So it's just, it's easy for me to, if I'm get a little itch to play some music, I can just grab it and it's something to do. And for a while when I was injured, I was playing like 5 hours a day. I was like fully committed to getting good again. And then once I started playing, it just kind of fell off to the side. But
yeah, if he's ever on the bench, he's going to grab his instrument and go play with the alumni band.
That's what I thought I'd do. Just come in. If I'm not playing, just grab the horn.
That was
Sam,
my
did you have
question.
Yeah, there you go. Ryan, I think you're good.
Yeah, so I guess with the guitar theme, favorite song or songs to play on the guitar, and then can you play Country Roads on the guitar, or will you learn that prior to July 24th?
I could definitely play Country Roads on the guitar. But I could play the chords to Country Roads on the guitar pretty easily. It's a pretty simple song. My favorite song to play on the guitar, that's tough. I don't know. There's some weird like what would it even called, like new age electronic stuff that this band called Polyphia does. Nobody would know it, but it's just instrumentals. But the guy's really he does a great job of like incorporating like modern techniques, and so they're really hard songs to play. So I put a lot of time into that. But I don't know. I just play around. I play a lot of like jazz stuff, like improvising. So that's I don't have to think so much. It's just kind of playing for fun.